Rainbow Six Siege is a complicated game, with many layers, and for new players starting out, like yourself hopefully, it can all seem a bit daunting. In this series though, I'm going to be giving you a beginner level crash course on how to play each role. As for all the nuances, you can find them out for yourself. But for now, I would like to welcome you to Siege Kindergarten. I have returned with yet another video. The reception of the last one was largely positive, and I'd like to thank you all for the positive vibes. Anyway, we're going to stick with defense until I get all the roles done. This lesson, though, is about anchoring, and much like roaming, anyone can technically be an anchor, regardless of their design or not. It's really up to you. Now, what is anchoring? Anchoring is the act of staying on objective and holding it. Mostly. There are a couple of exceptions, but they are few and far between, and I will mention them when I get to them. Their primary purpose, remember from the last episode, is to secure the objective and not allow the attacking team onto site. This role is a bit different from a roamer because it has subcategories, which breaks down what each operator's specific role on site is supposed to be. The most important part of any anchor's time is the prep phase. Those 45 seconds are invaluable and should not be underestimated. That's how you reinforce the site, make rotates, peepholes, and set up their utility. Without the prep phase, 90% of anchors would be useless. Now, the three subcategories that I mentioned before are Controller, who relies on crowd control, denial, zoning, hard breach denial, etc., and information denial to keep the attackers away from site, Support, who assists the team, whether it be through healing or new sight lines, and the last subcategory is Trapper, which is pretty self-explanatory. They set up traps and other ways to catch attackers off guard and possibly kill them. Now, just because you're playing on site doesn't mean you should be afraid to leave it. If you are familiar with the map or routes to get a better angle on a stagnant attacker who is holding an angle on you, you should try and flank in order to catch them off guard. Additionally, much like how most roamers are 3 speed 1 health, most anchors are the inverse, which is 1 speed 3 health, which is why they are mostly designated to stay on site. Much like how I broke the roamers down by giving you designated roamers, I'll do the same thing with anchors. Remember, don't take this as gospel. You can roam, anchor, or lurk with basically any operator. Something new I'm going to be doing with this lesson, though, is I'm going to be mentioning synergies, since it's usually actually relevant with these operators, as they will be around other defenders more often. If I mention an operator that has a synergy with another op, and I haven't talked about them yet, in this video or the previous lesson, assume that either A, I will get to them later in this lesson, or B, they are a lurker and I will talk about them in the third lesson. Viewer discretion, once again, all of this information is up to date with Operation Dread Omen. Now, without further ado, let's get into the anchors. Mute is a 1 speed 3 health operator. His unique gadget is the Signal Disruptor. He has 4 of them that he can place down. When he places them down, they activate instantly, and any attacker technology is instantly deactivated. This includes breaching equipment, drones, claymores, and basically anything else. They have a spherical area of effect that is 2.25 meters in radius. Due to this, I would classify him as a controller anchor, because he denies intel, hard breach, and deactivates most utility that attackers can bring. Be wary though. There are ways to counter Mute, which we'll get into in later lessons. His loadout consists of the M59A1 shotgun and the MP5K machine gun for primaries, and for secondaries, he has the P226 handgun and the SMG-11 pocket submachine gun. I prefer running the MP5K and the handgun, but most people prefer the M5 and the SMG-11. It really is up to preference, as both of his weapons are good. Some people will swear that the only right way to play Mute is with the shotgun, but like I said, it is up to you. His secondary gadgets are the nitro cell and the bulletproof camera. Honestly, I didn't even know Mute had a bulletproof camera until researching this video, if that shows you how common people using it over the C4 is. Some other operators that Mute synergizes well with are Mozzie, Mira, Maestro, Echo, and Castle. Speaking of Castle...
You've disabled the bond diffuser. Good work.
You can train all you want, but nothing can take the place of experience.
Castle is a 2-speed, 2 health operator, and remember how I said earlier that the prep phase is the most important thing in the round for an anchor? Yeah, well, no one exemplifies that more than Castle does. A competent Castle will be able to manipulate the surrounding area of the map to his benefit, all in about roughly 45 seconds. His gadget is the armor panel, and much like Mute does, he gets 4 of them. They basically function as a more durable barricade. They take about 9 to 10 melee hits to break, and are bulletproof. The only exception to this rule being the Boss G, which can make peepholes, but they are not explosion-proof. Now, I know how reassuring it must sound to have durable, mostly bulletproof barricades protecting the site, but I would not recommend using them on the doors to the site. You should be using them on windows or to make the playing field bigger for you and your team. Now, I would also say I classify Castle as mainly a controller, as he can control the areas the attackers have to work with and force them to reroute or make them waste resources trying to get into sight that they normally wouldn't have to waste. An argument could be made for support, and I wouldn't really disagree. His loadout consists of the UMP-45 submachine gun and the M1014 shotgun. Take the SMG because he also gets a shotgun for a secondary option. He gets 3 of them, by the way. The 5.7 USG pistol, the M45 pistol, and the Super Shorty shotgun. I would say take the Super Shorty because it allows you to reshape the map even better due to being able to open holes in soft walls and make rotates. His 2 secondary gadgets are the proximity alarms and the bulletproof camera. Personally, I run the prox alarms, but in the end, it's up to you. They both have equal reason to be run. Now, Castle might seem like he's very helpful to use as a new player, but I wouldn't recommend using him as you're learning the game, because his armor panels are best utilized with map knowledge. So wait to play him until you know the maps at least a little semi-well, you know what I mean? Other operators that Castle synergizes well with are Mute, obviously, as we've established, Goyo, Oryx, because he can dash to the armor panels if needed, Mira, Aruni, and Azami.
Op 4 is defusing a bomb. You need to disable their diffuser.
The only way to save a life is to take one.
Doc is a 1-speed, 3-health operator, and he is basically your friendly neighborhood healer. Don't let Doc mains hear you say that though, because for some reason 85 to 90% of the people who play him are sweaty, toxic, and extremely unhelpful. Most just want to roam and spawn peek, which is fair, I suppose, but definitely not how the character was designed to be played. But like I said, you can play any character any way you want. I'm just here to help you start your journey, not tell you how to play the game forever. Anyway, sorry. Rant aside, Doc's gadget is the Stim pistol, which is a pistol that is loaded with 3 shots. Each shot heals an operator, regardless of being on attack or defense. Not that that's really relevant, but it is funny to note. Back to full HP with some overhealth depending on the state of their HP when they're shot, to a max of 145 overhealth. Additionally, his gadget can heal himself by pressing the gadget button again and can revive players who are knocked into the down but not out stage, even himself. Reviving someone with the pistol will heal them right up to 145 HP. Word of advice, always save 1 stim for yourself, unless you don't think you'll need it. Oh, and before I forget, the overhealth decays at a rate of 1 HP per second. Doc is obviously classified as a support type anchor. I don't think I need to explain why. His loadout consists of the SG, CQB shotgun, and the MP5 and P90 submachine guns. Honestly, pick from either of the SMGs because he gets the Bailiff 410 as one of his secondary options, which completely trivializes the shotgun. His other secondaries are the P9 handgun and the LFP 5.86 revolver.
1 friendly remaining.
My opinion is that you should take the Bailiff, and that is a well-documented opinion. His secondary gadgets are the bulletproof camera and barbed wire. I go back and forth on these myself, so it really is up to you. The good doctor synergizes well with Rook and Thunderbird. And that's kind of really it. He doesn't really need a lot of other operators to make him self-sufficient or support, because he just kind of does it all himself. Anyway, moving on.
I trust myself not to move, not to flinch.
Rook is a 1-speed, 3-health op. His gadget is the armor pack. He places down a pack filled with 1 piece of armor for each member of his team, including himself, so 5 in total. The armor gives every operator who puts it on 20 extra health, for a total of 120 for 3-1, 130 for 2-2, and 145 for 1-3. It also allows them to take 15% less damage from every source, and on top of that, they will always enter the down but not out stage after their HP reaches 0, and will be able to self-revive by holding the interact button. Doing so will revive them with 20 HP regardless of health rating. There are only 2 exceptions to the guaranteed down but not out rule: headshots and melee kills. I would always recommend destroying the armor pack if there's still armor in it once the action phase has started, because attackers can equip the armor, which gives them benefits. Make sure your team is aware that you are going to be doing this though, so they don't get blindsided by this. Also, place your gadget down as soon as you load in so everyone can get armor immediately. It helps your armors be able to leave earlier and avoid detection, and allows your anchors and lurkers to set up sight faster. Much like Doc, I would classify Rook as a support-type anchor. I feel like this is obviously self-explanatory. He supports his team via his armor. His loadout is almost the exact same as Doc's. P90, MP5, and SG QCB for primaries. All of them are viable for Rook because he does not get the bailiff like Doc does, so the shotgun is actually viable. His secondaries are the LFP 586 and the P9. Taking one or the other doesn't really matter. His secondary gadget list consists of proximity alarms, impact grenades, and observation blockers. Proxies and impacts are both really viable. Observation blockers are just really not all they're cracked up to be. I wouldn't recommend taking them on any op who gets them. They'll probably always have a better option. Who does Rook synergize well with? Well, obviously the first answer is Doc, and also just like the Doctor, he pairs well with Thunderbird. The thing about Rook is he is very omnipresent. Everyone on your team will be able to feel your impact just by wearing your armor, so he kind of pairs well with basically anyone.
You have been identified.
Surprise! Shumiha is here!
Tachanka is probably one of the most iconic characters in this game. Everyone knows him, everybody loves him. He's a 1-speed, 3-health operator, and his gadget is the Shumika Launcher, an incendiary grenade launcher which launches grenades that bounce and then detonate, lighting the area on fire. He comes with 20 shots in total and can carry 5 in a magazine at a time. Due to him lighting the floor on fire, he's an invaluable zoning operator and works very well against shields. The fire burns for 7 seconds and then extinguishes. In order to make the grenades fly further, you will need to aim higher in the air in order for them to arc properly. Because of his massive area denial, Tachanka is classified as a controller. His loadout consists of the DP-27 light machine gun, his old gadget turned into his primary weapon after his rework in Year 5 Season 1, and the 9x19 VSN submachine gun. I would personally recommend the LMG every day of the week. Higher damage, more ammo, it can make rotates and peepholes. It's just more valuable if you pick it. But it is a preference because the 9x19 is also really good. His secondary weapons are the GSH-18 and the PMM handguns, and the Bearing 9 submachine gun. It's up to you on this, they all have their value. His secondary gadgets are barbed wire, the deployable shield, and proximity alarms. Honestly, all of his gadgets are really cohesive with his kit. It just depends on if you want your enemies to be hindered when they are lit on fire, or if you want to know roughly in advance when they are going to get there to give you a better chance to zone them off. Tachanka synergizes very well with Frost, any camera-based operator, so Echo, Valkyrie, Mozzie, or Maestro, or Smoke, Goyo, and Malusi for better zoning potential.
One op 4 remaining.
Simply pull this string and there's the welcome mat.
Frost is a 2-speed, 2-health operator, and her gadget is the Welcome Mat, which now that I think about it is honestly a really fucked up name, but I love it anyway. She has 3 of them, and they are effectively bear traps. Really simple, not much to talk about. What is worth talking about is the effect that they have on the people caught in them. When someone steps into a Welcome Mat, they are immediately put into the down but not out state. There are a couple of options on how to escape these. They either A, wait for a teammate to come pick them up, or B, the more risky option, is to self-revive. Doing this inflicts the attacker with a status condition. They cannot sprint, they move slower than normal, and leave a trail of blood behind them. This status condition only lasts for around 10 seconds, if I recall correctly. Frost is best played when you place her welcome mats on windows, over obstacles they have to vault over, in barbed wire, or just in really random and goofy spots. You'd be surprised how often those work out. The goofier the better, because they won't be expecting it. You should always be playing near her mats in order to capitalize off of the initial trap. Now be warned, these traps are not indestructible. They can be destroyed with bullets and explosives, and once a trap has successfully caught someone, it will be destroyed upon their escape, no matter how they do it. Now, because of how many times I've said the word trap, what classification of anchor do you think she is? Rhetorical question. She's obviously a trapper. Her loadout consists of the Super 90 shotgun and the 9mm C1 submachine gun for primaries, and the M1911 handgun and the ITA-12S shotgun. I would recommend using the C1 and 12S for your loadout, but obviously it is up to you. All of her weapons are quite good. Her secondary gadgets are the bulletproof camera and the deployable shield. I personally run the shield because when they vault over the obstacle they have a chance to hit my welcome mats, which is a classic Frost strat. But the cam is viable as well, especially if you place it near a welcome mat. Synergies that she has are Bandit, Kaid, Legion, Thorn, Smoke, Tachanka, and depending on where it is and if the Kavera is playing near it, Kavera as well.
One op 4 remaining.
Reloading, cover me. Lay the nest.
Going to lie down for a bit. Yokai can take care of them.
Echo is a 2-speed, 2-health operator, and his gadget is his 2 yokai camera drones. The yokai can move around the map much like an attacker's drone, but it also has another mode of interaction, hover mode, where it leaps up towards the ceiling and hovers. In this mode, Echo can fire a concussive blast, which stuns the enemy for 10 seconds. Additionally, if you have his yokais outside for 10 seconds or longer, they will be deactivated. The same is true for any observation tool the defenders could deploy. His concussive blast will stop several actions, including but not limited to planting and breaching. If you want a full list of what his gadget can interrupt, go check the Rainbow Six wiki. Some of the information there is a bit out of date, but they do work tirelessly to try to keep it as accurate as possible. Moving on, I would classify Echo as a controller type anchor, because even though he is a camera-based operator, which I would normally classify as support, his constant mobility with the yokai and ability to interrupt actions and stun attackers affords him the luxury of controller. Now, you could argue support, and I wouldn't really disagree, but I would personally rank him controller every single time. His loadout consists of the Supernova shotgun and the MP5 SD submachine gun for primaries, which are both very good, but I personally prefer the MP5 SD. His secondaries are the P229 handgun and the Bearing 9 submachine gun. I would only run the Bearing if you have the Supernova, otherwise it's just a bit redundant. His secondary gadgets are the impact grenades and the deployable shield. I'd recommend the impacts as they help with sight setup and can also secure low health targets and allow for a bit more of an aggressive playstyle so you don't feel so idle. I say that because a lot of playing Echo is just driving your yokai around looking for people that can get pretty boring sometimes. Obviously there's more to him than that, but you know what I'm saying. Some good synergies with Echo are Smoke and Tachanka, as he can provide a lot of intel. He works really well as a semi-roam partner with any of the roamers because of his ability to be out of the fight and still provide support with his yokai, as well as being able to scout out and acquire intel that the roamer might not have gotten otherwise.
Gonna give them hell and then some.
Mira is a 1-speed, 3-health operator, and her gadget is the Black Mirror, which are 2 one-way bulletproof mirrors that you can place on soft or reinforced walls. Additionally, by hitting the red canister on the bottom, you can eject the glass and create what the game refers to as a murder hole. The best use of the mirror is to place it on a reinforced wall right next to a soft wall, and use it as a way to get an angle on unsuspecting attackers. In most circumstances, you should never eject it, as it removes your advantage of one-way sightlines. Her gadget is fairly self-explanatory and seems simple in concept, but in execution she is a very difficult op with a steep learning curve. One piece I would give you, if you plan to pick up Mira, is to create a peephole on the soft wall next to her mirror, that way you can keep line of sight. But once you get accustomed to playing her, you can remove the peephole. Another thing is to try and place your mirror as close to the soft wall as you can to allow for easier tracking. I would classify Mira as a support class anchor, as she provides new sightlines and gives defenders opportunities for kills that they wouldn't normally be able to take. Her loadout consists of the Vector 45 ACP submachine gun and the ITA 12L shotgun. Out of these two options, the Vector is probably your best bet. Beware though, the recoil is no joke. Her sidearms include the USP 40 handgun and the ITA 12S shotgun. Take the secondary shotgun, it's optimal for opening holes if required. Mira's secondary gadgets are the proximity alarms and the nitro cell. Hot take here, I prefer the procs over the C4. Of course the C4 is the more popular choice because we exist in a kill-hungry meta, but it's up to you, both are valid. She synergizes well with Mute, Castle, Kaid, and Bandit.
Porca miseria, I'm sitting on my ass, not helping.
Maestro is a 1-speed, 3-health operator, and his gadget is the Evil Eye deployable camera, of which he has 3. He can place them on walls and floors, tables, etc. They are bulletproof and can rotate to avoid the glass being punched and broken. The bulletproof glass can open up to reveal a taser, which does 5 damage per shot and can destroy attacking gadgets. Additionally, the Evil Eye can see through smoke, and Evil Eye can fire a maximum of 20 shots consecutively before overheating. This is tracked by a bar displayed on the screen. When not firing, the bar will recover 20% per second, therefore a maximum of 5 seconds is needed to fully recover an evil eye. When overheated, the turret will automatically close and become disabled for those 5 seconds while the evil eye cools down. While the turret is firing, its glass casing is open and the turret can be shot and destroyed, breaking the device. Maestro is a controller type anchor because he can reroute attackers with the damage of evil eyes, and his camera will draw their attention. On top of that, he is very good at plant denial with the ability to damage the planter. He is best utilized with all 3 of his cameras on site so that they can see multiple angles. His loadout consists of the Alda 5.56 light machine gun and the ACS-12 shotgun. I prefer the LMG over the shotgun, but that's just me. Some people prefer it the other way around. His secondary weapons are the Bailiff 410 and the Karatos 357. Take the Bailiff, obviously. His secondary gadgets includes the barbed wire, impact grenades, and the observation blockers. Ignore the blockers, they are a waste of a gadget slot. The only correct options are either the barbed wire or impacts. It just depends on if you want to slow the attackers even more or have a little more kill potential. Much like Echo, Maestro spends a lot of time on cameras, so take whatever you think will make that less boring for you. He synergizes very well with Mozzie, Mute, Goyo, Wamai, Jaeger, Aruni, and Fenrir.
Your back against a mountain.
Kaid is a 1-speed, 3 health operator, and his gadget is the Artilla Electro Claw, which functions as a way to electrify reinforced walls, hatches, barbed wire, and deployable shields. It sticks to any surface it is thrown at and electrifies any of the aforementioned things as long as they are in its radius of 1.4 meters. There's no limit to how many things it can electrify as long as it's in the radius, and he does have 2 of them. Additionally, it can also electrocute through walls, so if you hide it on the ceiling of the floor below, and it will extend through the floor. There's really not too much to talk about when it comes to Kaid. His gadget doesn't have a lot of crazy uses beyond its intended purpose. He's a controller class anchor, as he denies entry through his electrified surfaces. Like I said, not much more beyond that. His loadout consists of the AUG A3 submachine gun and the TCS G12 shotgun. I prefer the SMG, but the shotgun also slaps, so pick your poison. His sidearms are the 44 Magnum semi-auto handgun and the LFP 5.86 revolver. I prefer the handgun, but apparently the revolver is also good, so it's up to you really. His secondary gadgets, and I want you to guess the most popular, are the nitro cell, barbed wire, and the observation blockers. Hot take here once again, take the barbed wire. It has more synergy with his kit, but if you want the C4, go off, I guess. But you're missing out on valuable utility. He synergizes well with Bandit, Frost, Mira, and Tubarao.
You've got people waiting for you. Think of them.
Goyo is a 2-speed, 2 health operator, and his unique gadget is the Vulcan canister. He has 4 of them that he can place on any surface that isn't the ceiling or deployable shields. Anybody, and I mean anybody, can shoot them and cause them to explode in a fiery explosion that lasts for 30 seconds. He can place them on barricaded doors and windows, which when broken open will cause them to explode. Additionally, he can place them on common breaches, and when the walls are blown open, the Vulcan will detonate and coat the ground in fire. Goyo is considered a trapper type anchor. Now I hear you ask, why trapper and not controller? He coats the floor in fire. By your own definitions, that's area denial, which is what controllers do. And that's a good point, yes, you're right. But I consider him more of a trapper class because of how he can completely catch someone off guard. And you can set up some nifty traps with his Vulcans. But if you want to consider him a controller, go right ahead. I think that's perfectly valid. His loadout includes the Vector 45 ACP submachine gun and the TCS G12 shotgun. I prefer the Vector, but as I established with Kaid, the TCS is a beast, so that's also valid. He only has 1 secondary weapon, and it's the P229 handgun, so I guess pick your poison with that. His secondary gadgets are the proximity alarms, bulletproof camera, and the impact grenades. They are all valuable, it just depends on how you plan on playing him. I prefer the impacts as they allow me to activate my Vulcans without revealing my position as much, but it really is up to you. He synergizes very well with Capcan, Tachanka, Smoke, Maestro, Malusi, Castle, and Wamai.
The longer we wait, the more breaths we take. The longer the wait, the greater the reward.
Wamai is a 2-speed, 2 health operator, and his unique gadget is the Magnet System, which is a magnetic disc that he can place on any surface. Whenever an attacker projectile enters its area of effect, which is roughly 3.5 meters in radius, will be pulled towards the disc, which will then detonate said ordnance and then destroy itself. Check the R6 wiki to see what the affected projectiles are. He starts with 1, but can have up to 6 as he gains another charge about every 45 seconds. You can use them to make creative disorientation of the attackers, and also place them outside of the objective to make creative traps. Due to Wamai's purpose of redirecting projectiles / ordnance, I consider him a trapper type anchor, as he can cause an attacker to blind themselves and or kill themselves with their own grenade. Wamai is not for beginners, as his magnet takes a bit of map knowledge to utilize them properly. His loadout consists of the MP5K submachine gun and the AUG A2 assault rifle. Pick your poison, but the MP5K has an easier to control recoil pattern as a drawback of less range, but it makes up for it in the fact that his MP5K at this point in time gets the ACOG sight. His secondaries are the Karatos 357 revolver and the P12 handgun. I prefer the revolver as it has a higher damage and a bit more destruction capabilities than the handgun, but it's up to you really. His secondary gadgets are the impact grenades and proximity alarms. I personally prefer impacts as they help with sight setup, but it's up to you. Both of them are valid. He synergizes well with Goyo, Maestro, Jaeger, and Clash.
Op 4, last operator standing.
A burning light that keeps enemies at bay. Can you take the heat?
Aruni is a 1-speed, 3-health operator, and her unique gadget is the Syria Laser Gate, which are 3 deployable gates that once placed cannot be destroyed, only disabled. Any gadget that passes through it will be instantly destroyed, and I mean any gadget, no exceptions. But once it passes through the gate goes on a cooldown for 15 seconds, after which you have to shoot the projector to reactivate it. If an attacker passes through it without turning it off, they take 25 damage and deactivates it again. On top of her versatile gadget, she has a passive ability. Her cybernetic arm is strong enough to leave massive punch holes in soft walls, about the size of a shotgun hole, which makes her really useful for sight setup, making rotates, peepholes, etc., as well as being able to make holes. One punch from an Aruni will instantly break any barricaded window or door and any unreinforced hatch, which provides any team with an Aruni on it a massive advantage. Due to her gadget's supreme area denial and rerouting potential, I consider her controller op. On top of that, also given her passive ability where she can, break things very easily with her cybernetic arm, that also gives her points in the controller op section. Her loadout consists of the P10 Roni submachine gun and the M14 EBR designated marksman rifle. I personally prefer the DMR over the SMG, but the P10 is still a good choice, and I do find myself using it when I'm not doing very good with the DMR. Just be warned, the SMG is a bullet hose and has only 15 bullets in a magazine. Her only sidearm is the PRB-92 handgun. Her secondary gadgets are the barbed wire and the bulletproof camera. For this, it's dealer's choice. I don't really know why she has either of these, but they both work well enough, so take whichever you want. She synergizes well with Castle, Oryx, Vigil, Ella, and Maestro.
5 seconds remaining. 1 Op 4 remaining. Op 4 eliminated.
Now that was your second lesson, and now you should understand at least the basics of anchoring. Sorry this video took a bit longer to get out. This is a bit more of an undertaking than I expected. As you can see, it's about twice the length of the first one. Of course, any questions you have related to the topic, I'd be happy to answer in the comments. Once again, please try and keep things civil down there. I know it can be difficult with you Siege players being unrepentantly awful and toxic. Much love, though, once again. Like if you liked, disliked if you didn't. That's what it's there for. Sub if you want, I'm not your boss. Anyway, all that said and done, I think I can safely say that class is dismissed.